Here we are, 2.5 months into the Nintendo Switch 2's life. And let me just say, it's been one of the most fascinating console launches I've seen in years. Some things have gone way smoother than people expected. Some things have been exactly as messy as we all feared. But today, I want to talk about something that doesn't really get a fair discussion online. Because if you try to bring this up on Twitter, or X, or whatever we're calling it this week, you just run into the worst kind of console fanboy nonsense. It's either the Switch 2 is way too weak, lol, just buy a PlayStation, or it's, no, the developers are lazy, Switch is fine. That's it. Two echo chambers shouting at each other. Zero nuance. But here on YouTube, we can actually sit down, break this down, and have a real discussion. And I think it's a conversation worth having, because when it comes to third-party games on the Nintendo Switch 2, things are starting to look, well, complicated. Let's start with the positives, because it hasn't all been doom and gloom. Some of the third-party ports on Switch 2 so far have honestly been very impressive. Street Fighter 6, it looks good, it plays great, and most importantly, it feels right. Yeah, the World Tour mode is capped at 30 frames per second, but honestly, who cares? That mode is basically filler. The actual core fighting, the thing you're buying the game for, runs smooth and feels great. Then you've got Cyberpunk 2077. And honestly, I'm shocked by how well this runs. I thought this was going to be an absolute disaster. We all remember what Cyberpunk looked like on base PS4, right? Yet here it is on the Switch 2. Playable, stable, and visually impressive, given the hardware. That's not something I thought I'd be saying in 2025. Even WWE 2K25 deserves props. Sure, it's missing a few of the flashy lighting effects from PS5 and Xbox, but the performance is strong and it's basically the same game. That's the important thing. It feels like you're getting the actual product, not a stripped-down handheld compromise version. But of course, it hasn't all been smooth sailing. Let's just rip the band-aid off. Madden 26. Yeah, it's rough. Really rough. EA clearly wanted this out at launch, but this version is basically a tech demo. Frame rate inconsistencies, missing features, you name it. And this is where you start to see the cracks in Nintendo's third-party story. And then there's the elephant in the room, Elden Ring. Now I'll admit, I'm not the world's biggest Elden Ring fan, but even I can tell this Switch 2 version doesn't look right. The off-screen gameplay from Canada showed a version that looked, well, like Elden Ring, but jankier. Worse frame pacing than the PS4 version, stuttering when you rotate the camera, just generally unstable. If this was their showcase build for Gamescom, that's concerning. Compare that to Final Fantasy VII Remake, which, to be fair, has been getting a lot more positive coverage. Some confusion about frame rates. Some people swore it was 60 FPS, others said it was 30, and now it looks like maybe there are multiple modes. But still, the general takeaway has been, yeah, it runs well and it feels good to play. Which is honestly all most people are asking for. But then you've got games like Star Wars Outlaws. And I'm sorry, but that IGN footage looked horrible. We're talking slideshow levels of performance, like 15 FPS in combat. That's not acceptable in 2025. Or take Borderlands 4. This one's been all over the place. Some people say it's playable. Others say once more than 4 enemies show up, the frame rate tanks and input lag kicks in. That's the kind of inconsistency that kills confidence in a platform. And don't even get me started on FC Club 26. 30 frames per second. Running on Frostbite. The same engine that's already struggling with Madden. Yeah, this one feels rushed. So here's the big question. Why are these third-party ports all over the place? Why do we get excellent ones like Cyberpunk and WWE, decent ones like Final Fantasy, and absolute disasters like Star Wars Outlaws? A lot of people boil this down to 2 arguments. The Switch 2 is too weak. The developers are lazy. But the truth is, it's way more complicated than that. The biggest factor here, in my opinion, is how long developers have had access to Switch 2 dev kits. Not every studio got one at the same time. Some got them very early, some very late, and some major studios still don't even have them. And when you're working with a new system, time matters more than anything. It reminds me a lot of the Xbox 360 launch. Anyone remember Madden 06 on 360? It looked fantastic, but it was missing half the features from the PS2 version. Why? because EA didn't have enough time with the dev kits to fully implement everything. A year later, things were fine. And I think that's what's happening here. The games that feel rushed, unpolished, or bare bones, those are from studios that clearly didn't get the hardware early enough. They're basically trying to get something out the door in the launch window just to be there, and the result is sloppy. Meanwhile, the games that had dev kits longer or are just more experienced with optimization on Nintendo platforms are turning in better results. And let's not forget DLSS. This is supposed to be one of the Switch 2's biggest weapons, right? Yet, hardly any third-party games have actually mentioned using it. That tells me most of these ports are still very early, very rushed, and not fully taking advantage of the hardware. Fast forward a year, when studios actually build DLSS into their ports properly, and I guarantee you the results are going to look way different. So no, I don't buy into the all third-party games are doomed on Switch 2 narrative. Are there going to be bad ports? Absolutely. There always are. The Switch 1 had them, the PS4 had them, the Xbox One had them. That's just the nature of gaming, but give it time. By the time Madden 27 and FC 27 hit, I expect them to look and run way better than these rushed launch entries. NBA 2K26 in particular has me curious, because if WWE 2K25 is any indicator, I think that game will run at a locked 60 FPS on Switch 2. Yes, some ports will always be compromised. Yes, there will always be developers who don't bother to optimize. But the good ports already prove it's possible. The bar is there, it just needs to be met more consistently. At the end of the day, the third-party story on Switch 2 is still being written. Right now, it's inconsistent. Some great, some bad, some ugly. But it's way too early to write this off as a repeat of the Switch 1 era. The real test will be a year from now, when developers have had more time with the hardware and DLSS starts being properly implemented. That's when we'll know if Switch 2 can stand as a real home for big third-party games, or if it's destined to always lag behind. But that's just my perspective. What do you guys think? Have you played any of these third-party ports yet, and how do you feel about the performance? Are you worried, or do you think things will even out with time? Drop your thoughts down below. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and share this with your fellow Switch players. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.